latest in your sports, and we are less than an hour away from the Springboks Rugby Championship match against Argentina. Earlier, New Zealand retained the Southern Hemisphere title by beating Australia. But it's all a big game for both the Boks and the Pumas at Ellis Park Stadium. And if it's a big game, it means eNCA's Percivale Young is there in Pretoria and joins us for the very latest. A very good afternoon to you, Percy. How is the atmosphere around Ellis Park this afternoon? I'm sure there's a lot of excitement ahead of the game. I've only ever attended one rugby match, and it was the most enthralling experience of my life. Tell us about this afternoon.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon, Rufi. I can tell you the excitement is building at Ellis Park, and it is in Johannesburg and not Pretoria, Rufi. I can tell you people are flocking in. We're expecting around about 50,000 fans here at this iconic venue. You know, this is obviously the venue where the Springboks won their first World Cup title here back in 1995. And today, it will possibly be, not possibly, but definitely be their last home match here on home ground against Argentina about 5:05. But obviously the Springboks hosting Argentina in the last test match of this condensed rugby championship. Like you rightfully mentioned, the All Blacks beating Australia earlier today and clinching that title. But this afternoon, Jacques Nienaber and his team will be hoping to put down a marker here as part of their building blocks ahead of that World Cup campaign later in France later this year. As you can see, the fans are excited. They're expecting a spectacle here at Ellis Park today. It's a massive clash for the two teams. They are preparing for that showpiece in France, like I rightfully mentioned. For the Springboks, they'll be hoping to pick themselves up after that defeat against New Zealand in Auckland a fortnight ago. For Argentina, Michael Cheika and his team, they'll be brimming with confidence heading into this clash after their convincing victory over Australia, also on that very same day in Australia. But who will reign supreme? We'll have to wait and see. Refiwe, only 41 days before the World Cup kicks off in France later this year. But first things first, the Springboks will have to deal with Los Pumas here at Ellis Park. And I'm fortunate to be joined by eNCA editor Vata Ngobene to help me analyze and dissect exactly what needs to happen here. Vata, always a pleasure chatting to you. The Springboks versus this Argentinian side, Michael Cheika and his team, they'll be brimming with confidence heading into this clash this afternoon.
No, without a doubt. I think that win against the Wallabies in Australia really gave them a confidence booster. But they'll come here. I mean, Michael Cheika said it, that I think the most difficult thing for his team is understanding what's going to happen inside the cauldron of Ellis Park, because this is the spiritual home of South African rugby. This is where they won the 1995 World Cup. This is where I think they produced some of their best and biggest performances. So to face the Springbok team on their last game on home soil, prior to going to defend their Rugby World Cup title, is going to be a huge, huge challenge for the Argentinians. But, you know, look at the way they played against the Wallabies, and you say to yourself, you know, they're going to be coming here to try and prove a point. You know, everyone talks about Argentina as, you know, still a minnow. But you look at what they've done over the years. They're not a minnow. They're one of the top sides in world rugby, and they're going to want again to prove that point against the world champions, who will be going as well to the World Cup as one of the favourites, you know, to win the competition.
But Jacques Nienaber and his Chargers, they've built up this week as a very emotional match. Jacques Nienaber's last match as a Springbok coach here on home soil. Dwayne Vermeulen saying at his captain's press conference yesterday, this could possibly be his last match as well. The South Africans will see the Springboks for the very last time here on home soil before they play for that showpiece in France later this year. How important will this match be for the home side tonight?
No, it's going to be probably it's their most important game of the year. You know, and I think what's important is that they manage their emotions. You know, they shouldn't let their emotions get ahead of them. As you said, last home game, last time for certain players to impress Jacques Nienaber before he makes that announcement on the 8th of August. So there's a lot to play for the Springboks. Yes, the Rugby Championship is gone, but for the players, there's a lot for them to prove. But also, I think just for the management and everyone, just to take in, you know, playing in front of their fans for the last time, and to take the support with them when they go over to France. It's going to be critical. Going there again with the history of the last World Cup having been in France. South Africa had won it in 2007. So there's a lot of emotion and history around whatever's happening. But everyone needs to keep their minds about them and their wits about them and say to themselves, listen, there's a far, far bigger goal in this game today. Players are playing for a ticket to go to France, but at the same time, you know, it is a farewell match for the Springboks at home.
Just sticking with yesterday's captain's run, assistant coach Mzwandile Stick said they are about 80% away of securing that 33 players, of finalizing at 33 players who will be booking their spot to France later this year. You mentioned the fact that some players will still want to put down a marker here today to prove to the national selectors, to Jacques Nienaber and to Rassie Erasmus, that they should also be boarding the flight. Who do you think needs to prove a point? We've got Grant Williams starting at 9 today. You've got Mani Libbok starting at 10 today. You've got two new wingers in Cheslin Colby and Kurtley Arendse. How important is it going to be for this side that's been selected for today against Argentina?
Critically important. I think you speak of a guy like Grant Williams. You know, we've seen what he does when it comes off the bench. You know, and I've got a feeling that he's got one foot in the plane. You know, and I think a good performance here today will secure his place there. Mani Libbok is not. I think Mani Libbok is probably 90% in that squad. What he's playing for now is to make sure that he's a second number 10, you know, behind Andre Pollard. And in the absence of Andre Pollard, he becomes that guy that the Boks will look to wear the number 10 jersey and make sure a guy like Damien Willemse, you know, he puts him out of contention. So I think there are a few players who I would say have got one foot on the plane to France, and a good performance here today will seal the deal for them and make sure that, you know, they're on. Grant Williams, a guy like Kurtley Arendse, I think has done enough. You know, you just look at the stats and the amount of tries he scored. He's equal to Brian Habana for 10 tries scored in 8 test matches. So I think he's done enough. You know, so the French players are the ones that I'm quite worried about. And I think there's about 12 players in the total squad that are going to unfortunately have to miss out on going to France and being part of a World Championship team that goes and defends the title, but also become the first team to win 4 World Cup titles.
But we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insights, sir. Well, reviewer, there you have it. It's a massive clash here this afternoon at Ellis Park Stadium in Johannesburg. 50,000 fans expected for this clash here this afternoon. It's set to start at around about 5:05. It is the last match here on South African home soil before the Springboks embark for Buenos Aires in the second test against the Pumas. And then they'll have 2 warm-up matches against Wales and the All Blacks at Twickenham before they set off for France for that big World Cup clash, starting off their campaign against Scotland. For now, reviewer, I'm passing the ball back to you, back in studio.
Thank you very much, Percy. I would say go and grab yourself a beer and enjoy the match, but you are on the clock, my friend. You and I are bringing the viewers of the very latest. Do not go and grab a beer like the fans there behind you. That is Percivale Young bringing us the very latest from Ellis Park ahead of the rugby match, which you heard is going to be taking off at just after 5:05 this afternoon. Still to